Welcome. My name is Kevin Lausch, and I'm a member of this congregation and also the director of the Children's Religious Exploration Program. The mission of Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County is to support individual spiritual journeys and to promote social, economic, and environmental justice. Whether you're watching live or at your leisure, thank you for being here. Your intention in listening and participating is what makes this time sacred. Whoever you are, we're delighted that you are with us. Here are some announcements. First, if you're wanting to meet some Unitarian Universalists, or frankly anybody, you're invited to attend the Fellowship on the Green, which is every Tuesday at the Varsity Street at the Fellowship Green on Tuesdays between 11:30 and 1:30. Bring a bag lunch, and of course, masks are required and social distancing. Also, just a reminder, if you haven't voted already, Tuesday is the day. Do your civic duty and go vote. Next, a caregiver support group is restarting and will have its first meeting on Monday, November the 9th at 10:30 in the meditation circle behind the church. You can be there in person with masks and social distancing, or you can attend via Zoom. Ann Rabb is coordinating. And also an announcement about the Power Up Dinners. A detailed article on the Power Up Dinner appeared on the October 30 newsletter. This dinner, which raises money for clients of Sharing House who need assistance with their fuel bills, is an interfaith effort by St. Philip's, the Brevard Jewish Community, and UUTC. We play a key role in this effort. You're encouraged to pre-order dinners by this coming Thursday and then pick them up at the parking lot at St. Philip's next Sunday, which is November the 8th, from 4 to 6 p.m. Please also send in contributions and perhaps volunteer to help. You can volunteer in many ways, such as helping with brownies for dessert or making signs. You can contact Bobby King to help. There's no charge for this meal, but we are urging folks to donate generously to the event. Cash and checks made to Sharing House with Power Up in the memo line, or credit cards can be used through PayPal and are happily accepted. Again, details are in the newsletter, so please take a look. And next, this is our introit to music. Terry and Daniel Sandoval will be singing Where There Is Light in the Soul.
Where there is light in the soul, there will be beauty in the person. Where there is light in the soul, where there is beauty in the person, there will be harmony, there will be harmony, there will be harmony in the home. Where there is harmony in the home, there will be honor in the nation. Where there is honor in the nation, there will be peace. There will be peace. There will be peace where there is light in the soul. Where there is light in the soul, there will be peace in the world. There will be peace in the world. Where there is light in the soul, there will be peace, will be peace, will be peace. Where there is light in the soul, there will be peace. Where there is light, there will be peace, there will be peace.
Our opening words this morning are from Franklin D. Roosevelt. Let us never forget that government is ourselves and not an alien power over us. The ultimate rulers of our democracy are not a president and senators and members of Congress and government officials, but the voters of this country. And now our chalice lighting. The reading is A Chalice Lighting for Challenging Times by Lisa George. Why a flaming chalice? The question comes. It's the cup of life, we answer. A cup of blessing overflowing. A cup of water to quench our spirit's thirst. A cup of wine for celebration and dedication. The flame of truth, the fire of purification. Oil for anointing, healing. Out of chaos, fear, and horror, thus was the symbol crafted a generation ago. So may it be with us, in these days of uncertainty, division, and conflict, a light to warm our souls and guide us home. And now our call to worship. Join us in singing hymn 119, Once to Every Soul and Nation. The words will be on your screen.
Once to every soul and nation comes the moment to decide. In the strife of truth with falsehood, for the good or evil side, then to stand with truth is noble, when we share its wretched cross. Ere that cause bring fame and profit, and 'tis prosperous to be just. Though the cause of evil prosper, yet 'tis truth alone is strong. Though its portion be the scaffold, and upon the throne be wrong, then it is the brave one chooses, while the coward stands aside, till the multitude make virtue of the faith they have denied.
And now we light our candles of joy and sorrow. Today, we light candles for all those who are experiencing fear and uncertainty. May this light, kindled by all our hearts, bring comfort. Today, we light candles for all those who conduct our elections and who keep us safe from those who might try to stop democracy from happening. May this light, kindled by all our hearts, bring honor. Today, we light candles for all those who take part in our election. There are those who think certain members of our society are less worthy or are not American enough to vote. Vote anyway. May this light, kindled by all our hearts, bring courage. And finally, we light candles for any care or any hope that you hold in your heart. May this light, kindled by all our hearts, be a torch you can carry forward. And you are welcome to list any of your own joys or concerns in the chat box. Thank you. And the next music is Faith is a Forest by Terry and Daniel Sandoval.
Faith is a forest in which doubts play and hide. Insights can hear the still small voice deep inside. Web of life, may this thread I weave. Strength and commitment to all I believe. Vision be my guide as I seek my way. Lead me into this tender day. Speak through me in all I do and say. Seeds of both meek and strong are scattered in air. Dignity shines undimmed by bigotry's glare. Web of life, may this thread I weave. Help me bear witness to all I believe. Justice be my guide as I seek my way. Lead me into this tender day. Speak through me in all I do and say. Fortune and famine ride the swift winds of chance. Sorrow and pleasure seem united in dance. Web of life, may this thread I weave. Mingle compassion with all I believe. Mercy be my guide as I seek my way. Lead me into this tender day. Speak through me in all I do and say.
Thank you, Terry and Daniel, for the music. As I enter into this time of preaching, I also wish to lift up the prayers for our communities, for our nation, in this time of stress and strain and divisiveness, of fears and hopes. Spirit of love and life, we who enter into this time together and this moment of voting, may we remember the beauty and wonder of what each of our perspectives might bring, the ways in which we are all indebted to the many differences, and the ways in which we must be committed to reduce violence, to build bridges, and to exercise our voice that some good may come of it. Blessed be, amen. It has been 100 years since the 19th Amendment passed. I am standing here before you to remind you that in the beginning, for this nation, for at least the first 50 years or so, and at least in many areas of this country, only the land-owning, therefore in some ways wealthy individuals, men of this country, had the right to cast a ballot. It was some time before that became changed. And then longer before it was changed that race was not to be an issue. It was 100 years ago that gender was then removed as a barrier. We shall not take voting for granted. And so I offer you today an election sermon, maybe among the lines of those that were lifted up eons ago. And I bring you, to help start us out on this, some words from the founder of American Unitarianism, the Reverend William Ellery Channing. William Ellery Channing preached these words in 1830 in front of the governor and the legislature as an election sermon. Part of what he said in a preamble to what I'll read from our hymn book: "The progress of society is retarded by nothing more than the low views which the leaders are accustomed to take of human nature. The politician who does not look at the bearing of their measures on the mind of a nation is unfit to touch one of people's great interests. Unhappily, politicians have seldom understood the sacredness of human nature and human society. Hence, policy has become almost a contaminated word. Hence, government has so often been the scourge of humankind. Spiritual freedom is the attribute of a mind in which reason and conscience have begun to act, and which is free through its own energy, through fidelity to the truth, through resistance to temptation. We are in the midst of influences which menace the intellect and heart, and to be free is to withstand and conquer these." From our hymn book, a summation of some of what William Ellery Channing was saying. It's number 592, if you happen to have one on hand. It's called "The Free Mind." I call that mind free which masters the senses and which recognizes its own reality and greatness, which passes life not in asking what it shall eat or drink, but in hungering, thirsting, and seeking after righteousness. I call the mind free which jealously guards its intellectual rights and powers, which does not content itself with a passive or hereditary faith, which opens itself to light whencesoever it may come, which receives new truth as an angel from heaven. I call that mind free which is not passively framed by outward circumstances and is not the creature of accidental impulse, which discovers everywhere the radiant signatures of the infinite Spirit and in them finds help to its own spiritual enlargement. I call that mind free which protects itself against the usurpations of society and which does not cower to human opinion, which refuses to be the slave or tool of the many or of the few, and guards its empire over itself as nobler than the empire of the world. I call that mind free which resists the bondage of habit, which does not mechanically copy the past, nor live on its old virtues, but which listens for new and higher monitions of conscience, and rejoices to pour itself forth in fresh and higher exertions. I call that mind free which sets no bounds to its love, which, wherever they are seen, delights in virtue and sympathizes with suffering, which recognizes in all human beings the image of God and the rights of God's children, and offers itself up a willing sacrifice to the cause of humankind. I call the mind free which has cast out all fear but that of wrongdoing, and which no menace or peril can enthrall, which is calm in the midst of tumult and possesses itself, though all else may be lost. I let those words sink in for a moment. Imagine a sermon which goes on and on and on, preached to the elected officials on election day. Imagine a Unitarian minister standing there speaking from a tradition which sees problems in the traditions of the orthodoxy of old, which seeks to speak to something of the values in each individual, no matter where they might come from, no matter how they might speak, and no matter their outwardly wealth. I hear in William Ellery Channing's words something of what later was called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yes, an acknowledgement of the need to eat and have shelter, but in that sermon saying even more so, we need to have our own groundedness in our spirituality. We need to have our connection to thinking of humanity in an uplifted way and not be drawn down, as so often politicians might do. I'm preaching to politicians myself who may see this online and recognize themselves as public servants and who themselves wish from that inward spring to say something from their free mind, not with the tyrannies of a majority, but with an openness to all who need to be included in governing. My prayers that all our elected officials may indeed rise their eyesight, not to the lowest common denominator, but to the highest of the values of the diversity of who we are, and the need for all to be included in the franchise and in the policies which govern us. It is interesting that we ourselves as a Unitarian Universalist congregation participate in democracy. Those of you participating in the election of officers, the change of your own bylaws, and just before that a special election called in which so many of the ballots came back in voting for me as your minister. Yes, we are a tradition that goes back centuries in understanding that your free mind, grounded in what you know of the mission of this congregation, of its vision and values and future hopes, that you are an actor to help set the stage for what is going to happen here. I'm not placed here by any religious authority. I'm not placed here by any government appointment. I'm placed here much in the way William Ellery Channing was suggesting, by a group of people of a free mind, released from tyranny to make their own decisions, released from fear to make clear decisions, and able to connect to the highest values in what if you term God to be, might lead you. If you term ethics to be, to guide you in whatever ways, with the inherent worth and dignity of each of us. We promote democracy here, and we promote it in our actions. You will see on my lapel one of those "I voted" stickers. And indeed, the envelope that used to hold the inner envelopes and parts to sign and mark, right here, I sent everything back last week so that it would be counted, so that I voted. It's very different during a pandemic. It's very curious during this pandemic, the ways in which the manipulation of where drop boxes are or are not, and which ballots received at what times will be counted or not, and when is it demanded that the ballots will be certified. I point out that during COVID-19, the way in which we held a congregational meeting was very much with safety in mind. We did mail-in ballots. And since the deadline was on a holiday weekend, people were given all the way until the next week for the mail to leave your mailbox in Brevard, to go down to Greenville, South Carolina to be sorted, and then sent back to Brevard Post Office, and then back to your congregation's mailbox and P.O. box. We left in a lot of time for that to occur. The challenges raised to the Supreme Court recently of can votes be counted if they arrive late is in no small measure some of the basest arguments of why and where and how we should be taking away the right of votes that have been sent and not letting them be counted. I, as a Unitarian Universalist, abhor the restrictions of voting rights. I, as a thoughtful person with my own mind, am concerned that in a society in which we know it can take a week for something to get there, that if the law says it is to be postmarked by a certain date, why in the world would we have to argue that in reality the votes should be counted when they arrive? I made sure my ballot was hand-stamped at the post office. I wanted nothing to prevent my vote from being seen clearly as being sent the week before the election. But if we've told people that they can vote all the way up to November 3rd, I personally believe that the various machinations to take away votes are, from this minister's perspective, no support to democracy and our republic. I don't have a whole lot of influence, but I have my vote and my voice. An article a decade ago by Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt, one of my colleagues of color, calls us to let go of our ineffective, innocent posturing on issues and really dig deeper to engage with others, to be real, to deal with reality, to be part of something far more effective. She urges that we're too far bound in being correct untainted by compromise, and in so doing we become unfaithful to the call of living a religious life. Yes, I hear her saying that reaching out to other people, understanding the humanness of others, will draw us out of our shell of righteous Unitarian Universalism, bring us into greater power because we're participating with love guiding us, not some notions of purity or arrogance. What are the purity and arrogance of Unitarian Universalists that I have seen? Sadly, those who would spend most of their time at a General Assembly arguing over the exact right words to get into a resolution. Understand that our words have meanings and can harm. But in what way, by taking all our times to focus on words, have we lost the time to say how we would take that resolution to our elected officials, to our neighbors, to our co-workers, in explaining how we want to change the world? It is as if, as Unitarian Universalists, we believe that by having some resolution passed at an annual General Assembly, that the world will magically read our exact wording and magically have their minds spring forth freely to understand the truth, lifted of the scales of ignorance. People will just maybe follow us. In the meantime, we've done nothing to listen to those who are different from ourselves with our ears open to understanding where they come from in their values. We will not progress unless we are engaged in reality. We also will not progress if we send delegates to a General Assembly who are not, in fact, representative of our congregations in its diversity. I've been to far too many Unitarian Universalist General Assemblies where it seems only those who can afford to be a delegate are selected, or by default, the only ones going to a General Assembly. Due to COVID-19 this year, the work to do our delegate count online began to open it up to those who, either through their congregations, their public library, or wherever they could get the internet signal, that a person not having the funds to travel could be there virtually. Indeed, all had to be there virtually. I'm hoping that out of COVID-19 we shake up our sense of who it is who is our representatives to our greater bodies when we vote on resolutions. I am hoping that as Unitarian Universalists we deal with reality when those resolutions come back, to have some way to wrestle with them in here and figure out how we can translate the perfect wording for some General Assembly into what we would like to bring as a voice in our community. I always found it interesting to be in a county that was far more conservative than any Unitarian Universalist delegate nationally was, to be told to bring back this resolution to those far more conservative elected officials with no hope that I would be given any hint of how to explain my perspective that was so foreign to the person elected by those in the county surrounding me. Unitarian Universalists, I've found, are in a minority in any of our communities. How is it that we can write our will in a way that does not teach us to speak to others? I call that mind free, yes. But that free mind of individuals who are in touch with their values means nothing unless they are, in fact, calm in the midst of tumult, possessing ourselves though all else be lost, and casting out fear but that of wrongdoing, which recognizes all human beings, in all of them the image of God. Folks, we who participate in democracy must recognize the humanity in everyone, even those what we would describe as a danger to our country. And in fact, the Braver Angels survey in the final days of October report that over 70% of Democrats and over 70% of Republicans believe that if the opponent is elected, it will be disastrous for our nation's future. How did we get here, folks? It's interesting to see in that same survey, independents don't quite believe that to be true. Those listed as other don't quite believe that to be true in the same numbers, although they're beginning to get there, and a majority do. How is it, folks, that we are left with divisiveness and belief that those who are out there about to lead us will be a disaster for us? It is because we have allowed ourselves to be led by fears and for our elected officials to not have read a very long election sermon by not only William Ellery Channing in 1830, but religious leaders throughout time who have asked politicians to rise above. How is it that we might show up in the days to come with whichever elected officials are before us, our choice or someone else's majority choice, to see how we work together? I mentioned to you that I have watched with hope, and I played it during a On the Green luncheon with a few UUTC folks sitting around safely in the sun with their masks on, to watch the Utah gubernatorial candidates put on a 30-second thing saying, no matter what happens after the election, we know how to work together. And we will. We approve this message. What if we insisted on that for ourselves first, and then for our elected officials? What if our prayers might go out by a quick note to those who are being elected to beg of them to keep their sights high and to be in touch with all, no matter how low, in some baseless hierarchy in our society? What if we spoke our truth in a way of a prayer? Probably much better than a proclamation. We will need our proclamations as well. We will need to be speaking how we see a truth in this world. We will need to work hard. We are not a religion which believes all will work out no matter what we do. Last month at the grounds cleanup work party here at UUTC, there were many individuals working to make a difference. It takes a lot of effort to make this property look cared for. I shared a joke from the Building Your Own Theology class that we will plan to offer online this winter. The joke goes something like this. A priest comes up to a gardener while walking and making rounds and in admiration says, "You and the Lord have done fine work in this beautiful garden." The gardener, exhausted from a long day's labor, looks straight into the priest's eyes and retorts back, "You should have seen the place when God was working alone." Ours is a tradition which says we have some control over making a difference. And though we may look and pray in our own ways to find something of the holy to guide us, in the hope that our world would indeed be a beautiful garden and our society something of Eden. Ours is a tradition which says we carry the best of what we learn and our talents into helping to shape and guide things that are important. And like the gardener, we have a lot of weeds and a lot of mulching to do. If you have not already voted, pick a buddy and make a plan to be sure to vote. I believe more than ever, more than back decades ago when people were starting to get lackluster about showing up, I believe that this is one of those times in which it is not an off year. It is not one of those times to sit it out. It is not one of those times to have said, the perfect candidate is not in front of me. Yes, I've been on walks and I've seen the signs saying, vote for my cat, vote for my dog, vote for Jesus. But those are not the choices on our ballots. Our ballots ask us to make a choice. Please participate. It is part of Unitarian Universalism to participate, to cast a vote, to have a plan. If you have already voted and you are willing to be somebody's buddy to encourage them, would you type in the chat box now? I can't see it, but would you type in the chat box now? I voted, and I'm willing to give you encouragement and be your buddy, that you too will go to have your vote counted. Will you do that? Will you type in, I have voted, and I will be a buddy to those who still have not made it to have their vote placed there to be counted? And then, will you join me midday on Wednesday for a prayer for each other, a prayer for our government, a prayer for this country and its divisiveness, a prayer for peace after so many people think the world is going to end, a prayer for bridge building and real work and getting down and dirty and making this world a better place. Join us midday for a service here and a Zoom conversation afterwards for those of you who need to connect with me, your minister, and chat a bit about the aftermath. Blessed be to you all. Thank you for voting. Thank you for serving. Thank you for bringing your best mind to the decisions that are in front of us. I stop at this moment to remind you that no matter what goes on, no matter what sermon is preached, whether you thought it was the best one in the world or not, I remind you that we are a giving people. We are a people which know that the world works by the sharing of the riches that we have, by our voice at the ballot box, by the gift of our work in pulling weeds or whatever actions we do, by the ways in which we freshen up a sign, sweep, give a ride to someone, call on someone who is sick. We sacrifice our time, talent, and treasure for the good of this place. We also, as Kevin said at the beginning, are a part of a very important partnership for Power Up. And if we wish to reserve our meals to be part of sitting and having a meal in our own place, thinking of the ways in which we are donating to Power Up, that it might make the tens of thousands of dollars of difference that are needed, that we will not forget after this service to look up the newsletter instructions and contact Bobby King and make our donations outside our organization as well. Thank you for remembering that we're not just letting the world end on Tuesday, but that we are, in fact, continuing to make a difference in this world as we move forward in helping others. For this is part of our mission. With that in mind, in a spirit of love, now let us sing. Hymn number 368, the words will be on your screen.
Now let us sing,
Sing to the power of the faith
sing.
within.
Now let us sing,
Sing to the power of the faith
sing.
within.
Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing,
Sing to the power of the hope
sing.
within.
Now let us sing,
Sing to the power of the hope
sing.
within.
Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the hope within. Now let us
Love.
sing,
Sing to the power of the love
sing.
within.
Now let us sing,
Sing to the power of the love
sing.
within.
Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the love within. Now let
Joy.
us sing,
Sing to the power of the joy
sing.
within.
Now let us sing,
Sing to the power of the joy within.
Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the joy within. Now let us sing,
Sing to the power of the faith within.
Now let us sing,
Sing to the power of the faith within.
Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within.
Lift up your voice, be not afraid. Let us sing to the power of the love within. As we extinguish this flame, may we remember the words which helped it come into being and carry out our days with our minds free, based in the love of this religion, freed from fear, and looking to make a difference in this world. As I extinguish the helper candle, let us remember all the helpers in our lives and the ways in which we too might be a helper for those who need their flame lit or some light on their path. Thank you for voting. Thank you for participating in this great value. I hope that many of you can tune in on Wednesday, whether you can or not. As you return again to this service next Sunday, may you remember that you come back to a place of love and joy and belonging. Blessed be. Amen.